This is Learning with Coach History. This is the first of 6 lessons on the Roaring Twenties, the business of America. In this lesson, you'll learn about the 1920s business boom and its effects. Key terms and people: Warren G. Harding, Charles Evans Hughes, Fordney-McCumber Tariff, Ohio Gang, Teapot Dome Scandal, Albert B. Fall, Calvin Coolidge, urban sprawl, consumerism, and installment plan. In 1921, Warren G. Harding and Secretary of State Charles Evans Hughes urged world powers to agree not to build warships for 10 years, and for major naval powers to scrap many of their existing warships. They agreed to disarm weapons. Americans wanted to stay out of world affairs, but France and Britain owed World War I debt. Their economies were too weak to repay the loans. Congress passed the Fordney-McCumber Tariff in 1922, which protected American businesses from foreign competition. This tariff made it impossible for Britain and France to sell their goods in the U.S. As a result, France and Britain pressured Germany to pay its war reparations. Germany's economy was too weak, so it couldn't pay. To avoid another war, banker Charles G. Dowes came up with the Dowes Plan, in which the United States loaned money to Germany to pay back Britain and France. Then Britain and France paid back the United States with its own money. Most of Harding's problems were caused by his cabinet appointments. Charles Evans Hughes, Herbert Hoover, and Andrew Mellon were excellent choices who did much for the country. Others lacked ability and honesty. Some were part of the Ohio Gang, the president's poker playing buddies. One of the worst cases of corruption was the Teapot Dome scandal. It involved government-owned land, which held large reservations of oil. Albert B. Fall secretly leased the land to 2 oil companies and was later found guilty of bribery. Harding's presidency was tarnished. Harding died suddenly in 1923, and Calvin Coolidge became president. He was then elected president in 1924. The new president, Calvin Coolidge, favored policies that promoted business and limited government interference. Henry Ford and the Model T had a tremendous impact on the country. New roads were built and new businesses came about. Automobiles ended the isolation of rural families. Cars made it possible for people to live further from their jobs, which led to urban sprawl, as cities spread out in all directions. Cities in Ohio and Michigan grew as major centers of car manufacturing. States that produced oil, such as California and Texas, also prospered. The automobile became a status symbol. Everyone wanted one. By the late 1920s, around 80% of all cars in the world were in the United States. The airline industry also grew. Planes carried the nation's mail and passenger service again. The 1920s were prosperous, and people spent extra income. Consumerism, or acquired goods, helped the economy. Electricity also changed the country. Homes had appliances of all kinds. They made work easier and led to more women working outside of the home. Advertising tried to appeal to people's wish to be young, beautiful, and wealthy by using psychology. Brand names became known nationwide. Most Americans had confidence in the 1920s prosperity. Most businesses seemed to make a fortune. The stock market reached new heights, but this prosperity hid problems. First, business was not as healthy as it seemed. As workers produced more goods, businesses grew. Large businesses bought up or merged with smaller ones. But as businesses grew, managers made much more money than workers did. Also, mining companies, railroads, and farms were doing poorly. Second, consumer debt rose. Businesses needed to sell all the goods they were now producing, so they encouraged buying on the installment plan, a form of borrowing. Customers could make low payments over a period of time so they could afford to buy more. Banks provided money at low interest rates. Advertising also pushed the idea of buying on credit. Average Americans were spending more money than they actually had.